All right, is it going? All right, I'm not sure I can say by popular demand, but people ask me how I put my motors in my motor mountless tubeless rockets. So here I don't have the nose cone on it, but here's the rocket deployed. I'm going to undo the bands here so it'll be loose. So when we start out, all of the pull bands will be off because otherwise you're fighting with it. Here's your outside hole. There's your inside hole. Your key tool is the Macho Man's Essential, is the crochet hook. I use the scissor later just for demo purposes. If you were minimum diameter, you'd just be using just a motor. In this case, I've got I'm going with a larger diameter, so I've got these little pieces around the motor. They normally wouldn't be here if it was minimum diameter, but I also use it because it's easier, so hopefully it'll video better. So key is start with your crochet hook, close your rotors. Crochet hook goes in through the hole on one side, goes out through the hole on the other side. Grab with your non-dominant hand your rubber band, throw a loop, hang onto it with one of your fingers. I choose the fourth. You can use whichever one you prefer. Pull this through, bring that on, hold that on. At this point, you can go ahead and insert your motor in between these first two rotors that you're going to work with. You can see, hopefully on the inside, there's the rubber band going through the middle. So you put this through until it hits the rubber band. And that rubber band actually is your equivalent of an engine block. Once you get that through, pull a little bit more of the rubber band through until you can get a finger underneath it. Once you get the finger underneath it, you need to get rid of your crochet hook. Pull it so you have a little bit of rubber band on each side. These are your two loops. Pull the first loop through, bring it down over the end, bring it over the end of the motor that's sticking out. So you have to have the motor sticking out at least a quarter of an inch, quarter inch to a half inch. You do the same thing on the other side. The first time you do this, it's a little tough. It gets easier very quickly. It's a very easily learned skill. So now you have two rotors fixed. You do the other one. This time make sure when you put the hook in, make sure the hook is aimed upward just a little bit. Otherwise you'll catch on your rubber band that you've already put in. Again, you're going to come out the other side, turn the motor hook so it's up. Grab non-dominant hand, stick a loop around a finger. The other loop goes over the hook. And you pull that back through. Once you get through, you can change your angle. Bring it all the way through to the other side. You've already got your motor in, so now you just drop a finger through here, snake your crochet hook out. Even up your loop so you have loop on this side and a loop on this side. Bring this loop down around the end of your motor. We got that one. And flip the rocket over and put this down on the other one. Bring it down on the other side. One of the things you'll also notice, the fins on my rockets tend to have a little bit of a forward delta, or a forward sweep, if you will. Not a delta, but a forward sweep. And that means that this end is a little lower. That keeps these from slipping in between the rotors, which tends to happen if you don't have that forward sweep, or you can put toothpicks on it. So let's get these out of the way so you can see what we did down at the end. So looking at that from the end, you now have the motor in place. It's being held by a band on each of the four sides, and it's in there. I'm holding this by the motor, and it ain't going anywhere. And I'm trying to push the motor down, and it won't go anywhere. So it's held in pretty well by this. We'll hook on the bands. So the bands are hooked on. I would normally have a nose cone here, but just for demonstration purposes, it's a little easier to see without it. But I've got little hooks up here. There's one way of doing it. There are several ways of skinning this cat. One is not to get things tangled up to begin with. There's two. There is 2.5. There's 3. And there's 4. One of the things you'll notice is that the angle isn't very good here. This is trying to pull this thing this way. Well, the hinge is this way. It needs to be pulled out. So these things sticking out are not canards per se. These are both rotor stops and they're rotor band displacers. So we're going to take that rubber band. You also notice there's a little notch on the inside. So we'll pull that band up and drop that into the notch. And we'll pull that band up and drop it into the notch. And we'll pull that band up and drop it into the notch. And you can see where we're going here. So now I have all of those set up. You'll also notice that this is a laminar construction, so it's a plywood out of mixed basswood and balsa. So the outside is 1/32 inch basswood, so it's not very thick, but it's pretty strong. And you notice the grain direction is this way because the bands, if they're going to break this thing, are going to break it sideways. So they've got their full force of strength. What you can't see on the inside, or barely, but you can make out the grain direction. On the inside, I have 1/16 inch balsa. That gives me just enough space to stick these rubber bands in here. The grain direction there is going this way, parallel to the long axis of the rocket. And that's because when this deploys, this thing is going to slam forward. It's going to slam up against the side here. And if the grain direction was that way, it would probably break. So that's why that laminar works together. It works well. And with the two 1/32 pieces of basswood and then 1/16 in the middle, it's only an 1/8 inch wide. So looking down the barrel, hopefully I've got that angled for you so you can see that. So this is the rocket. Basically, all I'd have to do is put an igniter in, and obviously I have a nose cone in it, ready to launch. I will demonstrate the deployment for you here. Normally at apogee, when the ejection charge fires, those rubber bands are directly in front of the motor, and not only that, they're stretched, so they are primed to be melted and broken by the ejection charge. Now, I'll simulate that, but I can only do one set at a time here. So I'll do the first set here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and cut these. And that one goes up. You'll see the other one will go. There goes the other one. And now you can see on the inside, there is the there's where that normally the other one was here. So this is what's acting as your engine block. And I'll cut this. This is a fairly good simulation of what would be happening if it was burning. And I'll do that. And that releases the motor. And it also releases the rotors, so you can see those are deployed. Here's the inside, just for looks. When you go pick up the rocket, the first thing you should do is take these things off, so it makes it a lot easier to carry it back without it flapping around in the wind. This is the motor casing, which has a streamer on it, and it falls down on the streamer. And these are things I've added for this particular model simply because I wanted to go a little bit bigger than minimal diameter. So these are just pieces of foam board that I've cut to fit. So they just slip over the model, and they just happen to be the exact right size, and they would be reusable. And your streamer, you could cut off and reuse that again. So feel free to reply to this video if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.